And there is so much information out there regarding cosmic geography that it's not possible to present all of the information that's desired on the one occasion. So today is part one. Next time it would be part two. But first of all, an affirmation of the things of faith. And I read from the New Testament book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 28. You have shown me the way of life, and you will fill me with the joy of your presence. True Christianity is a happy experience, a living experience. Patriarchs and Prophets, 600. Faith in God's love and overruling providence fills the heart with joy. I read them again. You have shown me the way of life, and you will fill me with the joy of your presence. Faith in God's love and overruling providence fills the heart with joy. We go back, way back, almost into eternity. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning of everything, God created the heavens, everything that is out there. It was Christ that spread the heavens. It was his hand that hung the worlds in space. The hand of God guides the planets and keeps them in position in their orderly march through the heavens. The hand that sustains the worlds in space is the hand that was nailed to the cross. Never will it be forgotten that he whose power created and upheld the unnumbered worlds humbled himself to uplift fallen man, and I might say fallen women and fallen children. That's the creation of the universe. Now the creation of our own planet. Back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, which tells us, in the beginning God created the heavens, yea, we looked at that, and the earth, with a capital E, if you please. The oldest book of the Bible, Job, chapter 26, verse 7, tells us that God stretches out the north over empty space. He hangs the earth upon nothing. And apparently God went to an empty space in the universe and then created our system, our planet, and all that goes with it. Exodus chapter 20, verse 11, in 6 days the Lord made the sky, the earth, the sea, and everything that is in them. Patriarchs and Prophets supports that concept. Everything that God has made was the perfection of beauty. Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, as a reminder of original creation, God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. And forgive me if you please, that statement is valid to this very day, 6,000 years after it took place. God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. God saw that a Sabbath was essential for man, even in paradise, way back there before sin came in. Now we look, that was the planet Earth, its creation. Now we look at the creation of the sun. The Bible tells us in the first chapter, verse 16, God made two great luminaries, both of which were self-burning. God made two great luminaries, the greater luminary to rule the day. And we read on with the information regarding the creation era. Genesis chapter 1, verse 19, the sun was created, we are told, on day 4 of creation week, 6,000 years ago. The sun is not millions of years old. Our planet is not millions of years old. 6,000 years as an approximation at the present time. Ministry of Healing, 424. The sun was made by Jesus. Desire of Ages 21. The sun shines to make glad the inhabitants of 1,000 worlds. That's interesting. What do we learn about the geography of the sun from Wikipedia? The sun is at the center of our own solar system. It is 109 times larger than planet Earth. It rotates counterclockwise once every 28 days. It is rotating at a speed of 230 miles per second. 230 miles per second. Surface temperature of the sun, 127 million degrees Fahrenheit. I guess we got the thermometer close enough to measure a temperature of that nature. It would burn the temperature equipment. The sun is 93 million miles from Earth. Sunlight takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds to reach the Earth. And it was created originally brighter at the time of original creation. That's about the sun. What about the moon? Genesis chapter 1, verse 16 tells us, God made two great luminaries, the lesser luminary to rule the night. We mentioned the greater luminary, now the lesser luminary to rule the night. The moon, according to the information in the sacred scriptures, was a self-burning luminary. A self-burning sun was the moon. I read, the moon was made by Jesus. What do we know about the geography of the moon? Wikipedia can tell you. It's 250,000 miles away. It's a quarter the size of planet Earth. It's about 2,000 miles across. It rotates once in 29.5 days. That's where we'll get our month from approximately. The orbital speed of the moon is 800 miles per second. We always see the same side of the planet. That's only one side shows to the Earth. Moon gravity is 1/6 of that of planet Earth. Moon gravity drives the tides in our great oceans. Rather interesting. And the moon temperature during sunlight is 260 degrees Fahrenheit. At nighttime, minus 280 degrees Fahrenheit. What about the moon at creation? Genesis 1:16, at creation day, the moon was a self-luminous body. Day 4 of creation week. Now, I read scientific statements that you can read on the internet. I quote RAZWAATB, whatever those letters stand for, but you can find it on the internet. It says the moon was a luminous body. Another statement, the outer layer of the moon, the mantle of the moon, was one time liquid magma. They are stating that the cover of the moon, the outer surface of the moon, was at one time molten rock. That's a scientific statement there. NTT, the interior of the moon was one time molten. Professor Nick Dygert at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville says, it is fascinating that the moon was completely molten. William A. Steigenberg, NASA, in Greenville, Maryland, says the moon was covered in a global ocean of molten rock. Wikipedia says the moon was, long ago, very hot, so hot that its entire mantle, its entire cover was one time molten rock, a magna ocean. The lunar magna ocean was likely present on the moon from the time of the moon's formation. In other words, NASA, the space agency, is stating quite clearly that when the moon came into existence, it came in a molten form. Bridie Keating at NASA says, shortly after Earth's moon was created, it was covered in an ocean of molten rock. Eric Rolls, a writer, says, a team of scientists led by French astronomer Arthur Briord has established that the likely contents of the moon's core is a solid metal ball covered by a molten layer of hot rock, melted rock on the exterior. University of Chicago News says, quoting NASA in the year 2023, last year, when the moon was formed, it started off very hot with a deep magma ocean. Wikipedia says moon samples indicate that the moon was once molten to a substantial depth. Many different countries with their space agencies all report the same thing, that the moon was one time a molten, self-burning sun. What about the stars? Genesis 1:16, God made the stars also for the fourth day of creation week. Now, the Jewish historian Josephus on page 25 makes this statement, on the fourth day, he's quoting Bible information, on the fourth day, God adorned the heavens with the other stars. Not all of the stars out there, just Jewish history, but on the fourth day of creation week, he made what he calls the other stars. I would suggest he means what we call the planets that go as part of our system. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. You know, we read that so often and we just glide over it. But here, that verse is telling us everything in this system of ours was made at the same time. It's all of the host of them, says the Bible. And we can translate that or retranslate it, making it say this, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, together with all the heavenly bodies associated with them. Patriarchs and Prophets 47, thus creation was now complete. Back there at the original circumstance of the planet that you and I are inhabiting today. Let's go to the era of the Great Flood. At the Great Flood, there were massive, horrific, intergalactic events on an unimaginable scale, so large that modern researchers abandon a lot of these things because they cannot understand it. Ancient historians, ancient writings on papyrus, on clay tablets, translated, tell us that way back, some long ago, two planets collided and they threw debris throughout nearby space. That's on the translation of clay tablets. They even name the two planets that collided. They were called Thea and Tiamat. Then this is written on translations from ancient clay tablets. A massive explosion when it occurred. Millions of broken pieces formed what we call the asteroid belt that is around the Earth. 1/3 of a million impact craters on the moon. When you look at the moon, you can see these round impact craters where debris has collided into the moon. And they have counted approximately 1/3 of a million impact craters on the moon. There are massive impact craters on Earth. I have seen one. 1/3 of a million on the moon, massive craters, impact craters on Earth with a collision from space debris. What is suggested is that the sun output was diminished at around the same time. The moon was switched off and cooled down, and that the Earth was moved to a new location in space. That is the suggestion that you get out of these items of information. And you can read a lot of this information on the internet with the understanding they place it millions of years ago, our Bible tells us that these things happened, the original creation, and then the flood that took place in the days of Noah. Let's analyze now the information about impact craters that we can find on planet Earth. So far, 190 have been found in various areas. There is a circular impact area, and then molten solidified upward shatter cones that have coagulated as a result of that. And another thing that they have discovered is that in these impact craters, if I get my spelling accurately, the inside of these impact craters upon planet Earth, there are anomalies of radio reception, indicating that there was a change in the surface or the near surface of the Earth, where debris from the collision of these, the breakup of these two planets has collided with planet Earth. The world's largest was found, and thank you for a family that who can appreciate this. It was found in South Africa at Vredefort. Now, you'll have to tell me afterwards, where is Vredefort? If you don't know, we'll change the subject. The largest impact crater from space debris has been found in South Africa at Vredefort, 190 miles across in the Free State province. Astronomers estimate that an asteroid 9 miles in diameter traveling at 50,000 miles an hour must have made that impact. Now, that was the world's largest. Sorry. Another one has been discovered, and you'll never guess where that was. It was in Australia, and they've discovered it only just quite recently. In Central Australia, news a few months back. The impact area on that crater is 370 miles wide. It must have been a massive impact that took place. We would suggest that these things were all happening at the time of Noah's flood. The largest in North America is 37 miles across on the state line between Idaho and Montana. The most dramatic impact crater in the United States is at Barren Gur near Flagstaff in Arizona. It's the best preserved meteorite crater on planet Earth. It's a major tourist attraction. There's a visitor center there, and they get 250,000 tourists visiting this every year. You can see it on the internet. It measures 3/4 of a mile across, 3,900 feet. It's 560 feet deep, and they estimate that a meteorite crashed into that location sometime way back. We would suggest at Noah's flood. The meteorite was 160 feet across, traveling at 29,000 miles an hour. And every time these meteorite craters are made, the impact crater meteorite is vaporized due to the impact massive speeds that are involved. But it leaves telltale debris in each crater that is made. We come to Indiana. There is one 100 miles north towards Chicago from Indianapolis, 100 miles north of Indianapolis. Yes, there's a family visited there. The Kentland, Indiana crater. And it's a circular dome, 4.5 miles across, 130 feet deep. The disturbed area is 7.8 miles across. I've driven across it. We've seen it as a family. We went up there one Sunday to investigate, came to the Kentland crater, visited in Kentland, asked them about it. Nobody knew anything about it, had no interest in it. I visited in the museum in Indianapolis where they used to have a display from Kentland of the impact of that crater. I asked about it, and they said yes when I went into the museum. And they said, yes, we used to have it on display, but he said nobody took any interest in it, so we dismantled it. And I said, what happened to all of the pieces? They said, we discarded it. Nobody had an interest in it. And yet, this is one of the most remarkable impact craters upon planet Earth, and it's right here in our own state at the present time. In total, there are multi-thousands, millions of impact craters on the Earth, the Moon, other planets, and sometimes we are getting warnings of impacts that are being that may be possible in our own current era. Okay, now what happened to the Moon at the Great Flood? This is what I would suggest, and you can look this up in Wikipedia. They say it happened millions of years ago, but the Bible tells us that the Moon was created only 6,000 years ago, and so there is a different time factor, but they will tell you about the Moon in the information in Wikipedia. I suggest when you get home, look it up on the internet, read it for yourself. I would suggest that the Moon was switched off and cooled down at the time of Noah's flood. They say it happened millions of years ago. The dark patches on the Moon are molten rock that has cooled down. Wikipedia says the lunar surface is marked by dark maria, they call them seas, oceans, which are literally plains of cooled magma, molten rock that has cooled down. Now the man on the Moon with the human face obviously is not any form of living life, but in the southern hemisphere you can see it. Now, exploration of the Moon, the first was a flyby by Russia on January 2, 1959. That was a long while ago, but I do remember the date. There have been explorations of the Moon with some countries sending space vehicles to land on the Moon for the past 64 years, from 7 countries on 97 occasions. Experimental landings from 7 countries: Russia, USA, China, Israel, India, South Korea, Japan. And interestingly, every one of these countries has taken back samples of lunar rock, sand, and whatever, and they always all come back with the same answer. That is, that this indicates that the Moon was one time a burning sun and it has been cooled down. They have taken 2,196 samples from the Moon to the Earth. And right here in Indiana, when we first arrived here, and that was 40 years ago, but on one occasion I held a sample of one of these rocks and demonstrated it to the children at school and to the local newspaper and news media. 840 pounds of lunar rock and soil have been brought back to Earth, approximately 1/3 of a ton. Now, let's look at a few cases of cosmic geography that have been recorded in the Holy Scriptures. We look at the plague number 9 out of the 10 plagues of Egypt, Exodus chapter 10, verse 21 to 23, New and the NIV version. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand towards the sky so that darkness spreads over Egypt, a darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand towards the sky, and total darkness covered all Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone or anything move for that period of time the 3 days. That's in Exodus. Patriarchs and prophets. Suddenly, a darkness settled upon the land, thick and black. The atmosphere was very oppressive, so that even breathing was very difficult. Joshua's long day. There was a war between the Israelites and the Arabs. Well, forgive me, that's nothing new, is it? But the way back there in Bible times, there was another war between the Jews and the Arabs. Joshua chapter 10, verse 12 and 13, NIV. Joshua said to the Lord, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and delayed going down about a full day. The sun and the moon stood still until the Jews had won that war. Patriarchs and Prophets 5:09. This mighty miracle testifies that creation is under the control of the Creator. What about Hezekiah's long day? 2 Kings chapter 20, verse 1. In those days, King Hezekiah became ill, and he was at the point of death. The prophet Isaiah went to him and said, "King, this is what the Lord tells me. Put your house in order, because you are going to die, and you will not recover." Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, and he wept bitterly. And so the word of the Lord he prayed to at that same time. So the word of the Lord came to Isaiah again, and God told Isaiah, "Go back and tell the king, Hezekiah." He says, "I have heard your prayer. I will heal you. I will add 15 years to your life." King Hezekiah asked Isaiah, "Well, what will be the sign that the Lord will heal me?" And so Isaiah answered and said, "This is the Lord's sign that he will do what he has promised to you. Do you want the shadow to go forward on the measuring scale, or do you want the sun to go back 10 degrees, forward 10 degrees or back 10 degrees?" So the king said, "Look, it's a simple matter for the shadow to go forward 10 degrees, but he said, look, rather have it go back 10 degrees. So the Lord made the shadow go back 10 degrees. Now you can read more about that in the Bible, and the Babylonians sent a delegation to find out what did the Jews do to have the sun move backwards 10 degrees. Cosmic events in the Advent era. May 19, 1780. Matthew 24:29, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give her light as a reflector. Great controversy, 308. On the 19th of May, 1780, this prophecy was fulfilled. In the morning, the sun rose clear, but was soon overcast. The clouds became lowry, black, and ominous. Lightning flashed, thunder rolled. And great controversy continues and said, the clouds assumed a brassy or coppery appearance, and earth, rocks, trees, buildings, water, people were changed by this strange unearthly light. A few minutes later, a heavy black cloud spread over the entire sky. Same evening, Revelation 6:12, the moon became as blood. After midnight, the darkness disappeared and the moon had the appearance of blood. November 11, 1833, the falling stars. In 1833, the last of the signs appeared which were promised by the Savior as tokens of his second advent. Now you see, God intended that the signs appearing in the 1700s and 1800s should herald the rise of the Advent movement in the last days. And what God intended was that within this country, Protestantism would absorb two items of Bible information. One was the second coming of the Lord on the horizon, and the other was the importance of obedience to the seventh-day Sabbath. God intended Protestantism to absorb these things and to relay it throughout the world. It didn't happen. So what God had to do was to raise up a new people, a dozen people over there in New England, and a new work began. And today there are 35 or 40 million people who are worshiping with us each Sabbath morning as the Sabbath rotates around the world on the seventh day in all of these localities. Now, that's what I read here regarding these things, that the Savior promised these biblical statements to herald the final era on planet Earth. This prophecy, the falling stars, received a striking and impressive fulfillment in the great meteoric shower of November 13, 1833. That was the most extensive and wonderful display of falling stars which has ever been recorded. Never did rain fall much thicker than the meteors fell toward the earth. The splendor of that magnificent display, thousands swiftly followed by thousands. Cosmic events of the future not yet happened. Matthew 24:27. As the lightning comes out of the east and shines even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So brilliant and so grand will be the second coming. It will cover the entire sky. As the lightning comes out of the east, shines even to the west, covering the whole sky, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Great Controversy gives you more detail worthy of reading. Soon there appears in the east a small black cloud. It is the cloud that surrounds the Savior. As it draws nearer to the earth, it becomes a great white cloud. His countenance outshines the dazzling brightness of the noonday sun. Ahead of us, the millennium. The earth during the millennium is a dead, lifeless planet. One huge cemetery of lost souls floating through empty space for 1,000 years. After the millennium, the New Jerusalem, Revelation 21 verse 2, John says, as he was in the vision, John says he saw the New Jerusalem in its dazzling splendor coming down out of heaven through the open space in Orion. New Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven in the Bible. Great controversy and early writing through the space in Orion. And let us remember that the New Jerusalem is about half the size of the United States, half of Canada, half of Europe, half of Australia. It's a massive, massive planetary event. The earth is a blazing sun in the new earth. We're at 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. The elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also shall be burned up. Fire comes down from God out of heaven. The earth is broken up. The very rocks are on fire. This is planet Earth like a blazing sun. The earth's surface during the occasion when this takes place, the earth's surface seems to be one molten mass, a vast seething lake, or in actual reality, a vast seething ocean of fire. The earth will be wrapped in the fire of destruction, and the fire purifies the earth. The whole earth, I read in our writings, will be wrapped in a sea of liquid fire. Earth as a blazing sun at its destruction when it is burned up. But that's not the finish of the story, because the Bible tells us about a new earth for God, all of God's people. Revelation 21, verse 1. John says, I saw a new heaven, new sky, and a new earth. Other statements, the whole world will be bathed in the light of heaven. Isaiah 30, 26, the light of the sun will be sevenfold as the light of 7 days. I read again, the light of the sun will be sevenfold greater than it is now. Isaiah 30, 26, moreover, the light of the moon will be as the light of the sun. I read again, The light of the moon will be as the light of the sun. And so we put a comma there in the presentation of this information as part 1 of cosmic geography. Part 2 on the next occasion, more significant and important information. I conclude by reading again those statements as an affirmation of faith. Acts 2:28, you have shown me, he has shown all of us, you have shown me the way of life, and you will fill me with the joy of your presence. Patriarchs and Prophets 600. Faith in God's love and overruling providence fills the heart with joy. That was divine intervention, Cosmic Geography 1. Half the story, Cosmic Geography number 2, next time. We sang appropriately at the beginning of our worship service a song, a hymn with the title, I Sing the Mighty Power of God, appropriately worded for the power that God demonstrates in the entire universe and upon our planet, and of course in the ways of salvation. We want to take the hymn books now and turn to the final hymn for our worship service, and you find it on 200 on the number 202, 202, and